This is the Whimsy Farm podcast. I'm Carolyn Crane.
There's a big wide world right out your door. Good people doing good things. Whoa, it's a big wide world. Now is the time. Now is our time.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 28 of the podcast. And welcome, Maryam Barrie. This episode streams on the final days of spring, when spring is transitioning into summer. With that in mind, we're focusing on Fern Hill and Dylan Thomas today.
Good morning, Carolyn.
Good morning, Maryam. You look lovely today.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm excited to talk about Fern Hill and Dylan Thomas.
I am excited to talk about it too. It's been one of my favorite poems for a long time.
And you suggested we talk about it at this time of year because spring is ending and summer's beginning. The solstice is right around the corner. And as I looked at your Padlet, which I'll share now, I saw why you said that and how spriggy the poem is, and yet it looks towards fall and winter and darkness as well.
Yes.
So you have quite a thoughtful presentation here. I'm going to give you the wheel.
Dylan Thomas is a really interesting character for us to look at. He's well known as a Welsh poet, but he didn't write in Welsh. He wrote in English. And I've got a variety of people talking about Dylan Thomas here in the context that I want to provide before we jump into the poem. I think I'll start with Seamus Heaney, who ends up not evaluating Dylan Thomas all that well. This is the beginning of a long article that he writes on whether or not Dylan Thomas is durable, if he holds up. And he writes, Dylan Thomas is by now as much a case study as a chapter in the history of poetry. There is Thomas the voice, Thomas the booze, Thomas the debts, Thomas the jokes, Thomas the whales, Thomas the sex, Thomas the lies. In fact, there are so many competing and revisionist inventions of Thomas available, so many more or less corrective, reductive, and even punitive versions of the phenomenon that is known with a certain tentativeness that one asks whether there's any place on the roll call for Thomas the poet. And I disagree with Seamus Heaney, as crazy as that might sound, because I think there's still room for Dylan Thomas. He gets classified as a romantic, so he's not part of the modernist movement that's happening with a lot of other poets. But he's still luscious and worth our trouble. In the place and time column over here, I've got pictures of Fern Hill, although the poem isn't just about this one farmhouse. His mother's family was very extended. They all farmed in rural Wales, and it's an amalgam of his different experiences during weeks during the summer. Most of the year, he lived in a pretty urban environment in Swansea, but he obviously got a lot out of the times where he was let free to roam in rural Wales with his mother's family. I'm going to quick take a look at this New Yorker article, just because it includes something that I didn't know. And this is an old article from Adam Kirsch from 2004. But he begins it by saying, that when Dylan Thomas's father decided to name him Dylan, the name was virtually unknown, even in Wales. It was a name from the Mabinogion, a collection of Welsh folk tales. And before Dylan, nobody was called Dylan. And he doesn't even say it in the Welsh way, which would be Dullan. He says it in the English way, which is Dylan, which, is consistent with him using um, English as his main language as a writer rather than Welsh. Um, I'm not going to talk about all the examples that I've got here because, as you can see, I sort of got carried away. But this is an article from LitHub, uh, a chubby-cheeked. It's a description Dylan made of himself. Um, and in a 1950 letter to an American poet, John F. Nims, he describes himself in this way, and it gives us a sense of how he is excessive in his use of language. Remember me? Round, red, robustly rattled, a bulging apple among poets, hard as nails made of cream cheese, gap-toothed, balding, noisome, a great collector of dust and a magnet for moths, mad for beer, frightened of priests, women, Chicago, writers, distance, time, children, geese, death, in love, frightened of love, liable to drip. And listing is something that we see in Fern Hill. I don't know what the problem was with Chicago. That's mysterious to me. And it's too bad that he was frightened of children because he had three. But he was not an involved poet because by the time he had children, he was very successful as a poet and touring our country as well as parts of England. He started to keep notebooks when he was a teenager. He had like four very large notebooks that he kept as a teenager, and he went through them and sort of cherry picked some and submitted them as his first book, which was immediately published and lauded as this amazing prodigy of a poet. A lot of his well-known poets began in those notebooks that he wrote as a teenager. After he was successful in the last decade of his life, I think one source I read said that he wrote 10 poems that were important and credible, and Fern Hill was one of them. He wrote Fern Hill in 1945, and Fern Hill apparently went through 200 revisions, which is a lot of revisions. Um, as a poet, I'll say that. Donald Hall, do you know
So
who Donald?
on one of the links here, I read that in his later life, he worked as a journalist, both for the money and for the lifestyle of being in the bars.
Yeah, and during the war, he had severe asthma his whole life, so it's great that he smoked and drank so intensely. But during the war, he did a lot of journalism and radio episodes for the BBC because he couldn't serve in the war and he wanted to help somehow. We're going to take a look at a paragraph from one of those talks, and I'm going to take a drink. So, do you know who Donald Hall was? He was a big
Donald
deal.
Hall?
Donald Hall.
Yes, yes.
So he stayed with Dylan Thomas and his family on several occasions. You can get a sense of how he viewed Dylan Thomas because the title of this article was Dylan Thomas and Public Suicide. So that's how Donald Hall viewed him. He's got this quote from Dylan here where he says, "Poetry was a dark river flowing inside him, to which he could lower the bucket daily. The river had beautiful words in it, but free of the river, the words lacked structure." Um, which suggests that writing poetry was not as painful for him as it might be for, people like me. But it's a
I'm not
beautiful,
sure I know what that means. I'm rereading it. The river had beautiful words in it, but
but
free of the
free of the
river, the words
river.
lack structure. So when he called the words from the well or from the river,
Yeah,
they sort of fell apart on the page. Is that what Hall is saying?
he had to organize them on the page somehow. I think that's what he means.
And what does he mean by public suicide?
Well, there's a apocryphal story that Dylan was drinking at, I think it was the White Horse Tavern in New York City, and that he stood up and said something like, "That's 18 whiskeys. I think that's the record." It's not, he didn't drink 18 whiskeys and then collapse. Um, he drank an enormous amount and smoked an enormous amount, and he did collapse and went to the hospital. He was taken to the hospital because he was really asthmatic. Um, the enormous dose of morphine they gave him to try to ease him shut down his breathing. So after they gave him the morphine, he went into a coma for 3 days and then he died. Um,
And he
but
was
Donald
young.
Hall, what?
He was young.
He was only 39, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, you were about to say more about Donald Hall.
No, I just think that there's still a sort of myth that he was this huge drinker and he died of alcoholism, and he probably was an alcoholic, given the amount that he drank. Um, but I think he didn't like die of alcohol poisoning. He died of his breathing problems.
So was Hall talking about Thomas's posturing with calling it public suicide, his bragging about how much he could drink and then
Yeah,
collapsing?
and his behavior at getting drunk routinely, like he'd show up to a reading and be drunk. He'd drink during the reading. He drank. He was a serious uh drinker. And the smoking that he did, given the severity of his asthma, was also not good for him, right?
That was the
And
most suicidal than the alcohol.
I wonder if it was. And he was also, although he was married, he was certainly not monogamous. He was uh, excited to try as many, uh, uh, be intimate with as many friends as he could.
Male and female?
No, mostly just female.
I was going to ask that because he was away. So the family was in England and he
The
was
family
touring
was
the
in
world.
Wales. Yeah.
So that would make monogamy all the more challenging for a
Robust.
colorful poet who was
Oh, yeah.
drinking a lot.
And you can see what he looked like when he was young over here. Um, he was attractive when he was young, and he got bald, as he notes in the section I already read for you, and gained a lot of weight. But he was still this enormous celebrity in really in our country, much more of a celebrity than he was at home in Wales and England. Um, there somebody was speaking to his widow afterwards and saying he got a lot of encouragement from his audiences, and she said he drowned in encouragement. That's why he's dead.
Hmm.
This was from a BBC radio piece. You can buy the record of all of his radio talks, and I'll play a snippet of his voice in a minute so you can hear what it was like. Um, this is a piece about the farm that probably is what's being discussed in Fern Hill, uh, from Langharn. And he wrote, this is the beginning of it. Off and on, up and down, high and dry, man and boy, I've been living now for 15 years or centuries in this timeless, beautiful, barmy, both spellings, town, in this far forgetful, important place of herons, cormorants, known as here as billy duckers, castle, churchyard, gulls, ghosts, geese, feuds, scares, scandals, cherry trees, mysteries, jackdaws in the chimneys, bats in the belfry, skeletons in the cupboards, pubs, mud, cockles, flatfish, curlews, rain, and human, often all too human beings. And though still very much a foreigner, I am hardly ever stoned in the streets anymore, and can claim to be able to call several of the inhabitants and a few of the herons by their Christian names.
Ah,
I think it shows his humor and his wit and the way that he was in love with language.
yes, and the last line, what a sucker I am for water birds. That's as a sweetness.
Oh, there's definite moments of sweetness.
Maybe that was the sweetness that made him afraid of children, and the sweetness that made him drink because he was afraid of his own sweetness.
Oh, I think he clearly was in this piece that we looked at before. When he talks about himself, is made of, let me scroll down here again. Um, Hard as nails made of cream cheese. That's not all that hard.
But it looks hard, it fools people,
It
but
fools
then
people.
smush.
Yes, yes. Um, the last thing I've got for you is there's recordings of there's tons of people reading Fern Hill. Um, I am a Richard Burton fan, but I think it would be hard to listen to this version as Americans because he goes so quickly. It might be hard to catch on to everything. I'm just going to play the very beginning so we can hear his voice in that first stanza.
As I was young and easy under the apple boughs, about the lilting house, and happy as the grass was green, the night above the dingle starry, time let me hail and climb, golden in the heydays of his eyes. And honoured among wagons I was prince of the apple towns, and once below a tivers of the windfall light.
Yeah, and there's that skip in there too, so that's another reason to not. But his voice
Nice.
is so expressive and rolling in those stage trained way his voice was. Um, I played both versions for every one of my family members, and they preferred listening to Dylan Thomas read it. So I'm going to quick just play the beginning by him so you can hear the difference.
Now as I was young and easy under the apple boughs, about the lilting house, and happy as the grass was green, the night above the dingle starry, time let me hail and climb, golden in the heydays of his eyes. And honoured among wagons I was prince of the apple towns, and once below a time my lordly had the trees and leaves trail with daisies and barley down the rivers of the windfall light.
What do you think? Which voice do you prefer?
I think I appreciate both of them.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Well, here
And
we
now,
go.
are we going to read it?
Yeah, we're going to read it. I was
Oh,
hoping
good.
we could alternate stanzas and stop between each stanza to sort of explain and because some of it's not immediately obvious what he's saying.
I love that plan.
Great. So here we are. Um, a dingle is a green valley, a small green valley. So I'll read the first stanza. We can talk about it, and then I'll ask you to read the second.
Gotcha.
Fern Hill by Dylan Thomas. Now, as I was young and easy under the apple boughs, about the lilting house, and happy as the grass was green, the night above the dingle starry, time let me hail and climb, golden in the heydays of his eyes, and honored among wagons, I was prince of the apple towns. And once below a time I lordly had the trees and leaves trail with daisies and barley down the rivers of the windfall light. So I guess I'll just jump in and say some of the things that I love. I remember the first time I heard this poem because it's sort of etched in my mind. And I was struck by the lilting house. Lilting is a oral thing. It's a thing we can do with our voice. If singing voices are sweet, they're lilting. So the house is lilting. The house is light and musical and happy as the grass was green. Green gets used throughout the whole poem as, I think, a shortcut for what's green and quick, what's alive. When you cut back a shrub or a rose, you want to cut back to where the branch is still green on the inside, because that's where life will still happen. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And time let me hail and climb, golden in the heydays of his eyes. Heydays is celebratory. I don't know that time has eyes exactly, but this idea of golden being part of what time let me do. I always think of the way that as a small child, when school was out and it was summer, summer seemed like it was going to be forever. Time was so slow and sweet. There were days that, even afternoons, that seemed like they went on for a long, long while if you were really engaged in what you were doing.
That was my experience. And I wandered so much in my childhood and in the mountains of the Sierra Nevada, the
Oh, wow.
foothills. It was spectacular. And I really feel that here when I read this and his how he felt lordly and
Yeah.
princely and golden. Those are words of empowerment.
They,
Nature, as
yeah.
Fern Hill, is empowering him to love and see the beauty of everything around him.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's significant. I read a biography of him, and he had a horse on one of the aunt's farms called Prince that he would ride with only reins in the mouth, so no saddle, bareback, and he would just ride and ride and ride throughout the rural part of Wales that the family had settled.
Mm.
I don't know if it's an allusion to the horse or not, but I thought that was interesting. And a
Yes.
windfall is like a gift. So windfall apples or windfall fruit is things that you get without having to work for them. You just have to gather them up from the ground. And I think this is a way of saying that the light was a gift that he just experienced and floated in.
It creates a visual image for me of when shafts of light
Oh, yeah.
appear.
Yeah. I think it's meant to. You get one of my favorite stanzas, Carolyn.
Okay. And as I was green and carefree, famous among the barns about the happy yard, and singing as the farm was home, and the sun that is young once only, time to let me play and be golden in the mercy of his means. And green and golden, I was huntsman and herdsman. The calves sang to my horn. The foxes on the hills barked clear and cold. And the Sabbath rang slowly in the pebbles of the holy streams.
Yeah. I'm guessing that those two lines at the end speak pretty strongly to your sense of the awe that's in the natural world and the
Yes,
sacredness of it.
my church.
Exactly. Exactly. And it was his church. He was supposed to go to church, but he was pretty busy, so we didn't.
So
Um,
golden in the mercy of his means is the antecedent of that is still time, right? Time
yes.
is giving him the mercy.
Right. So the sense of largesse is a little smaller, but through his mercy, he still gets to play and be golden. There's six stanzas in the poem, and each stanza has 9 lines. And the first three are really a celebration of the very things that you're talking about when, like the memory you have of being able to wander in the Sierras and experience all that beauty firsthand. I think that's what he's experiencing here. He's remembering that golden time. I'm wondering if anything else needs, I think it's all pretty straightforward in that one, isn't it?
I think so.
So the third stanza is all the sun long, it was running, it was lovely. The hay fields high as the house, the tunes from the chimneys, it was air and playing, lovely and watery, and fire green as grass. And nightly under the simple stars, as I rode to sleep, the owls were bearing the farm away. All the moon long I heard, blessed among stables, the night jars flying with the ricks, and the horses flashing into the dark. I love that as he rode to sleep, the owls were bearing the farm away, that he's got this image of the farm's going to sleep with the owls.
And he's on his horse.
And he's on his horse, yes. A rick, I guess, is a haystack,
Oh,
and
okay.
nightjars are birds. So the nightjars flying with the ricks and the horses flashing into the dark. It's really sensual language. It definitely appeals to all five senses. We've got sound, touch, hearing, I don't know if there's taste in it, but maybe if you're Prince of the Apple Towns, you get to taste a lot of apples.
And fire green as grass. That's an interesting line.
It is, it is. And I think I just love it. I'm not entirely sure what he meant, but that everything is green and everything is growing and alive is exciting. It makes it an exciting poem to read.
Well, fire can be green, and sometimes the flames are green.
Do you know if what they're burning makes it green?
No, I think it's more the temperature, but like
Okay.
sometimes in a outdoor fire or burning fire, you'll see streaks of green amongst the red.
And blue. I know there's streaks of blue sometimes.
Hmm. And yellow, blue and yellow, and make
Sure.
green, of course. So he could be being more literal than we think, or he could just be having fun.
And I like nightly under the simple stars. We get the S sound there twice, but the idea that the stars are simple and straightforward for him as a child is really delightful. He's going to use the word simple again in the stanza you're about to read for us, too. And that's
And
sad.
it is simple. This life is simple, this direct connection with nature.
Yeah, yeah. If you have it, it's simple. Yeah. You get a
Shall
good
I?
one. Yeah.
And then to awake and the farm, like a wanderer white with the dew, come back, the cock on his shoulder. It was all shining. It was Adam and maiden. The sky gathered again, and the sun grew round that very day. So it must have been after the birth of the simple light, in the first spinning place, the spellbound horses walking warm out of the whinnying green stable on to the fields of praise.
Isn't that just luscious?
So luscious.
Um, and this reference to Adam and Maiden, that's where he's at the beginning of things. The sun grows round for the first time. Doesn't really make sense, but it has a meaning anyway about things beginning and life starting. And this first spinning place, for me, it evokes the the wilderness of creation, the way that things life and birth happen out of all this busyness, and the whinnying green stable onto the fields of praise is just gorgeous.
I feel like he gets a bit more metaphorical in this stanza.
Yeah, because he's getting further away from the raw innocence and joy in the first and second stanzas.
Yes, he sees the first spinning place, sees the metaphor of the horses coming out of the stable into the fields.
And I think he's becoming more of an adult as the poem goes on,
Hmm.
because he's not really a child in this stanza. Okay, so this is the fifth stanza. And honored among foxes and pheasants by the gay house, under the new made clouds, and happy as the heart was long, in the sun born over and over, I ran my heedless ways. My wishes raced through the house high hay, and nothing I cared at my sky blue trades, that time allows in all his tuneful turning, so few and such morning songs, before the children, green and golden, follow him out of grace.
There we go.
Yeah, yeah. So
This is the line of
imagine
demarcation.
it is the line of demarcation, yeah. And I wish I could remember the pieces that borrow this phrase. There's lots of borrowing of phrases from this poem in English and American literature. But this is one I ran into several times, sky blue trades. I'd love to have sky blue trades.
What does that
You
mean,
know,
do you think?
I think trades is like a work, like the my trade is dealing in this sky blueness.
Hmm. And there's time again with tuneful turning.
Yes. And then there's less morning songs than there were before.
And interesting that this is the one stanza of the six that ends in a comma rather than a period.
Oh, I hadn't even noticed that.
So you've got some momentum there as he
Oh,
is
yeah.
leaving the space of grace and tumbling into the darkness of adulthood as it was for him. Once he starts falling, he doesn't stop. The period is a full stop, but the comma is like a stumble into his new
Great
reality.
catch. I had never observed that in all my years of slobbering over this poem. And you get a doozy.
When I get to read the end, oh, I'm lucky.
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing I cared in the lamb white days. The time would take me up to the swallow thronged loft by the shadow of my hand. In the moon that is always rising, nor that riding to sleep, I should hear him fly with the high fields and wake to the farm forever fled from the childless lamb. Oh, I was young and easy in the mercy of his means. Time held me green and dying, though I sang in my chains like the sea.
Oh, God.
Ah,
Oh, gosh.
you can see his flirtation with madness
Sure. Sure.
from lamb white days to green and dying.
Yeah,
It is no longer spring or summer.
exactly. And wake to the farm forever fled from the childless land. There's such mournfulness in the loss of the time and place of childhood. And the last three lines here are lines I come back to again and again.
And I just think that's so true that when we are young and easy, time is showing mercy.
Yes,
Time is so easy on us. We are so carefree if we're in a safe place, of course.
if we're in a safe place, yeah.
If we're in our Fern Hill.
Yeah. And he hasn't mentioned the sea before. He's mentioned the greenery of the farm and the greenery of life. But for me, it works really well that he's describing himself as chained and singing such a raw and elemental song like the sea. And I guess a reason that the poem works is that as you were just saying, it's true. I think back to before school, when things in my childhood were, as you say, safe. They didn't know I needed glasses until I went to school. So as a little kid, I would read with it right up to my face, and I would lay on the lawn and think, Each blade of grass becomes specific just when I'm near, and when I'm not near, they fade into a green fuzz.
Mm.
Uh, it turned out to not be true, uh, but it was a beautiful idea in my head.
And it's how you saw things.
Yeah, it's how I saw things.
And this is how he saw things with his childlike eyes that transition in the last two stanzas to the troubled adult he became.
Yeah, and clearly somebody who drank and smoked as much as he did and was sexual as much as he was avoiding some trouble, some pain. I know his mother died when he was a teenager. I don't know if that was the grief that he was working to struggle with. I don't know.
It doesn't say in any biographical
There's
information.
theories. I read one psychoanalytic piece that talked about the father's remoteness and the mother's caring while she was alive and how that was withdrawn as she got sick. Uh, I don't know if it's as simple as that.
Well, I
Uh,
could see that how that would
sure,
tie back to his fear of children.
right. And oh, well, he had three.
Well, that part he wasn't afraid of.
No, that part he was not afraid of. He liked that part very well. Well, thanks for letting me do a deep dive into this. That's
I'm
great.
wondering if we should listen to him read Fern Hill as a closure.
Oh, I would love to.
Now as I was young and easy under the apple boughs about the lilting house, and happy as the grass was green, the night above the dingle starry, time let me hail and climb, golden in the heydays of his eyes. And honored among wagons I was prince of the apple towns, and once below a time my lordly had the trees and leaves trail with daisies and barley down the rivers of the windfall light. And as I was green and carefree, famous among the barns about the happy yard, and singing as the farm was home, in the sun that is young once only, time let me play and be golden in the mercy of his means. And green and golden I was huntsman and herdsman, the calves sang to my horn, the foxes on the hills barked clear and cold, and the Sabbath rang slowly in the pebbles of the holy streams. All the sun long it was running, it was lovely, the hay fields high as the house, the tunes from the chimneys. It was air and playing, lovely and watery, and fire green as grass. And nightly under the simple stars, as I rode to sleep, the owls were bearing the farm away. All the moon long I heard, blessed among stables, the nightjars flying with the ricks, and the horses flashing into the dark. And then to awake, and the farm like a wanderer white with the dew come back, the cock on his shoulder. It was all shining, it was Adam and maiden, the sky gathered again, and the sun grew round that very day. So it must have been after the birth of the simple light in the first spinning place, the spellbound horses walking warm out of the whinnying green stable onto the fields of praise. And honored among foxes and pheasants by the gay house, under the new-made clouds, and happy as the heart was long, in the sun born over and over, I ran my heedless ways. My wishes raced through the house-high hay, and nothing I cared at my sky-blue trades that time allows in all his tuneful turning, so few and such morning songs before the children green and golden follow him out of grace. Nothing I cared in the lamb-white days that time would take me up to the swallow-thronged loft by the shadow of my hand in the moon that is always rising, nor that riding to sleep I should hear him fly with the high fields and wake to the farm forever fled from the childless land. Oh, as I was young and easy in the mercy of his means, time held me green and dying, though I sang in my chains like the sea.
Oh, God.
Dylan Thomas, Fern Hill.
That
Thank you
was
so
a
much.
great idea. Thank you, Carolyn.
You'll be back in August with another episode of Poetry Sustains. And until then, thank you and be well, my dear.
Thank you, Carolyn. Bye.
Bye. You've been experiencing a recurring segment on the podcast that we call Poetry Sustains with Maryam Barrie. Thanks to Maryam for her hard work creating the Padlets for these episodes. Maryam is a poet, a poetry expert, and an emeritus poetry professor. Today, she works here, of course, and for the Midwest Review as a poetry consultant. Maryam and Poetry Sustains return in August for a detailed discussion of Federico Garcia Lorca. This podcast is produced on the sacred ancestral land of the Anishinaabe people, thanks to the California band Castle House for writing and performing our music. The Whimsy Farm podcast airs the 1st and 15th of each month on our YouTube channel, Carolyn Crane and Whimsy Farm, and wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Thanks to our underwriters, Just Play Productions and Cannabis, and to our paid Patreon members for their support of today's podcast. If you'd like to offer your support, please visit my website, whimsyfarm.net, and click the Patreon link to find a level of support that's right for you. There is also a free membership level. You can email me through the website as well as access all links to past and current episodes. That's whimsyfarm.net. I'll be back on July 1st. Until then, remember the words of Utah Phillips, who said, "Too many good people are doing too many good things to afford me the luxury of being pessimistic." Get out there and create some positive change. Stay safe, everyone.
whimsyfarms.net